session where we discuss issues relating to property transactions. Welcome to Property Matters, brought to you by Ascent Realty and supported by Ascent Radio. My name is Destiny Unwante Ijebo, and today we'll be having a very interesting session. And many persons have been wondering how they can own property and give out a part, or if they can just sell a property and still retain it. That's what we're going to be looking at today. How you can sell a property on one hand and still retain that same property. That's what we're going to be demystifying in today's session. So our topic for today is as a tool for property ownership. The topic again is joint venture as a tool for property ownership. So our focus today is Nigeria. Here we discuss property matters, any issue relating to property. So we're going to be focusing on using the tool of joint venture to own a property. That's what we are going to be focusing on today. As we usually do, we begin by telling a short story. So today we have Usas Adewale as our main character. Usas Adewale is the only son of his father. His father passed on recently, but before his father passed, he had a large expanse of land, 3+ to be precise, and is one of the indigenes in his community. It happened that in his community, almost everybody has sold their lands to non-indigenes. That's persons who are coming to settle in their community because they needed money to do one project or the other. Let us also point out here that Usas Adewale is an undergraduate. He has lost his father, who is his sponsor. He has no source of income again. Nobody is going to sponsor his education. Now he's faced with a dilemma: how to raise money for his education and at the same time not wanting to sell off his property which he has inherited from his father. Now, his father also inherited that same property from his father also, which that is Usas Adewale's grandfather. That's how the property has been coming. Based on their custom and tradition, the new owner of that property. Now, the only source of raising money for his education is to sell off those 3+ of land. And once he sells off that particular piece of land which the father has given him, he will have no inheritance left for him, but he needs to finish his education. Now he is asking, how do I continue with this? How do I retain my father's land? That's my ancestral home. How do I retain it? Though others have sold theirs, his father is just one of the few persons, about 3 of them left in the street, who still own lands that are indigenous in that particular street. So he wants to know what he can do to ensure that he retains that property and also raise money from that same property. So that's the summary of the issue we'll be addressing today. Now, that particular summary brings us to the topic of discussion today: joint venture as a tool for property ownership. How do you use joint venture? Now, before we go in there, we need to know what joint venture is about. Joint venture is the agreement. It's an agreement entered by 2 or more parties. When we say parties now, we mean persons, individuals. It's an agreement entered by 2 or more persons. It's a legal agreement entered by 2 or more persons for the benefit of both parties. Now, they are entering this agreement that, okay, we are going to mutually benefit from it. Mr. A, who is entering this agreement, is going to benefit from something. Mr. B also is going to benefit something as well. So it's an agreement that is entered by 2 individuals or even more with the goal of having a mutual benefit. It's not like it's going to be one-sided where you just pass your money. It's not like the regular sale of land that the vendor sells his entire property or a part of it to a purchaser, then he gets the money, the vendor gets the property. No, joint venture is a bit different. They enter this agreement, it is mutually beneficial to both parties. Now, how do you get this joint venture to own a property? Now, remember I told you that Usas Adewale has 3+ of land after his father has passed. How will Usas Adewale convert this 3 plots of land into a developed property and also raising money from that. Remember, he does not have any money to finance his education, but here he's looking at getting money from the land, develop the same property, and also live the life he desires to live, completing his education and also doing some other things for himself and some other persons who may be dependent on him. Now, how does joint venture apply to property transaction? Joint venture is one of those agreements that persons have decided to utilize in order to ensure that they have access to their land which they originally owe, and also making profits from it at the same time. Now, how does this work? We have Osas Adewale as our own character for today's. Sorry if you bear this name. It is not a representation of you. It's just a fictional character. Let's put that fact out there. Now, Osas is someone who has these 3 plots of land, and he wants to develop that property, but he doesn't have the financial capacity to do that because he is one who is also in need of financial assistance. He now finds a developer. A developer is one who builds property. He gets into a place, he finds an undeveloped land like bare lands. He builds a house on that particular land, whether for residential purposes, as personal use, or for investment purpose. Osas finds an investor, a property investor. This is someone who develops property for business purpose and residential and commercial, and even for private individuals who may just contract him. Please help us develop this property. Osas, who owns these 3 plots of land, contacts a property developer. The property developer has been looking for property to purchase in a nice location for his investment. Now, he proposes to him, I want to sell this property because I need money for my education. But an idea comes to Osas. Okay, I have 3 plots of land. I am going to sell this plots of land in order to raise money for my education. After selling this plots of land, how do I tie the money down in order to ensure that I don't squander them? Because what we see now, he doesn't know the business he can invest his money that will not fail because of some policies that are made here and there, and he doesn't have the requisite skills or experience to manage business at this point in time. Now he gets this idea. Okay, this is what we are going to do. This is the value of this land. Okay, we are going to put a fictional figure. Each plot of land costs 70 million, which brings it to a total of 70 plus 70. You have 140, and then another 70. That brings it to a total of 210 million. Now, if 3 plots of land will cost 210 million, says, okay, this is what we are going to do. The developer says, I am a property developer, and the property I'm going to develop on this land, each one will cost about 120 million. And the idea is a block of flats that has 10 units of 2-bedroom flat each. A block with 10 units of 2-bedroom flats each on each plot of land. Now, how does this work? Osas proposes to him, okay, since the value of the 3 plots of land is 210 million, what can we do? You develop each one at 120 million, you take 2 and I take 1, which means if he sells the entire property, which is 210 million, to this particular property developer, he will have 210 million naira. But then this property developer is going to develop that particular plot of land, and it will be worth, each one will be worth 100, or the value or the cost of developing each one is 120 million. He proposes to him, okay, this is what we are going to do. I'm not going to take this entire sum from you, but what we will do is you are going to develop this particular plot of land for me. While you are developing so for yourself, you develop one for me, and the same pattern of building you are going to develop for yourself, you are going to do same for me. And once that is agreed, the property developer develops the 3 plots of land. At the completion of the development, he gives one out of the three to this person today who is Osas Adewale. Adewale gets one of the three properties while the developer retains one. Now, remember that the cost of the entire plot will be a total of 210 million, which means Osas Adewale still has some monies left out of the whole transaction. If he's selling two at 140 million to this particular person, which is the developer, he still has 20 million naira balance, which means he will develop that property, which is the third one, at the rate of 120 million. And Osas will still have a balance of 20 million. Now, what this means is there's going to be an agreement between them, which will be reduced into writing. It is important to state here that you must reduce everything that concerns property transaction into writing. This is to avoid conflicts when tomorrow this person will say, it was not agreed that I'm going to develop the same pattern of house for you and for myself. There are features that will be in my own house because this is the taste I want. We do not have the same taste. Then Mr. A will say, okay, because I'm the developer and I'm going to develop this is the extent to which I'll develop yours while I do this to my taste. No, there should be an agreement that everything is going to be the same. If there will be 10 flats in block 1, block 2 should have 10 flats and block 3 should have same 10 flats. And you can decide on how you can proceed afterwards. Now, the agreement will now state that the value of the property, which the entire 3 plot, is 210 million. Now, the next thing is to state clearly that the developer is going to develop the 3 plots of land. This is the number of blocks that will be on the 3 plots of land, and this is the number of units of 2-bedroom flat or 3-bedroom flat, depending on what parties may agree on. This is numbers that will be on each plot of land. After all of these have been agreed upon, it will now be valued. At the end, each one will cost 120 million. Then you now have 20 million left, which means Osas will be paid the sum of 20 million as part of what is getting for the sale of 2 plots of land to the property developer. Now, if that is the case, an agreement that will be written down between parties should state clearly this is a joint venture agreement between Mr. Osas and the property developer. The property developer is to develop these 3 plots of land, a block of 10 units of 2-bedroom flat each. The developer will be entitled to 2 blocks, while the third block will belong to the property owner, who is Mr. Osas in this case. Now, after that, it will be stated further that as part of the consideration or compensation for Osas' contribution of the 3 plots of land, he will be compensated with the sum of 20 million. Now, this brings us to that part where we said the value of the plot of land is 70 million. This gives him, that is where this particular amount is coming from. In some other instances, they may disagree, they may agree, okay, we are not going to do the 20 million. I'm going to do certain things because I'm the one to employ persons who are going to build all of this. Let's reduce this to 10 million or 15 million. If that is the case, then they will also say, okay, this is what I'm going to give in return. It may also be agreed that, okay, after developing this property, you can manage this property for some time before giving it back to Osas. Let's take, for instance, the value of the land is 60 million and the cost of development is 100 million. You now find out that, okay, this person who is the owner of the land cannot afford it because he does not have money somewhere that's going to use to repay the cost of development of the property. They too can also agree that, okay, since I cannot afford to pay the balance of the development of the property, let's manage this property for a period of 5 years. That is, the developer will manage the property for a period of 5 years. He gets whatever proceed that comes out of the management of the property. And after a period of 5 years, he hands the property back to the original owner. This is one way you can retain that same property which you originally own. Because there have been instances where there have been fights here and there that the original owners of the land have been chased away from their homes. That's one issue that has been going on for some time now. But what you can do as a person to ensure that you retain that particular land which is originally yours is to enter a joint venture agreement. Instead of selling off your property, because that's what we have seen in recent time, persons will sell off their property immediately after the sale. They go into the best hotel, the best club in town. That's where you now find them. At the end of the day, they squander everything that they have gathered and they go back to the streets to complain that, oh, my property has been taken over. That should not be your own case. Now you have this knowledge of joint venture agreement. Enter this agreement with a property developer. Instead of just selling to any buyer, enter an agreement with a person. Okay, I do not have the money and I do not want to leave this place. Let us have this. Build and take this part. Build and I will take this other part. That is a way you can secure yourself a property without losing out entirely. You may sell and say, okay, I'm going to get a land somewhere that is cheaper. Then you become a stranger in that place that you have gone to. But if you enter a joint venture agreement, you remain part and parcel of that particular community. You may not live there at that particular point in time. You may get tenants into the property. Now, like I said, the example we cited, if Osas eventually gets that a block of 10 flats, 2 units, that's 10 units of 2-bedroom flats on that particular block of land, that property, it will mean that it will continue to take rent for as long as that property remains standing. That is another way of making profits off that property. If the property was developed at the rate of 120 million, and every year you are getting 2 million per flat, within a period of 5 years, you will have gotten something tangible out of that same property that you have given out rent. By the time Osas finishes his education, he will have something to fall back to. He can try to take a part of the building for his personal use and give the other part to tenants while he remains landlord in his own ancestral home. That is the way you can secure your own property even while selling a part of it. Now, I want to quickly put this out. There are certain features that must be in these joint venture agreements that you are entering into with a property developer. It is not enough for you to say, okay, I am going to enter this agreement because it seems juicy. There are things that must be in that agreement before you can say you have a valid agreement, because when that is not the case, someone can easily pull that at any time and you have nothing to hold him to. So let's say we have an agreement. As long as the agreement is oral, it is always my word against your word, and you don't want that to be the case. You want to be in a strong position to contend with whatever the other party is saying that this is what we agree on. If it's documented, then you can always refer to a document. So the first thing that you must consider when entering a joint venture is that it must be reduced into writing. There's also this thing that you must know by Statute of Fraud Section 4. It provides that every land transaction must be reduced into writing. If you want to play safe while entering this transaction, you must reduce that particular transaction into writing. And when you reduce it to writing, it tells what each party is contributing to the transaction. It tells you the role the party will play, and it also gives a clear definition of what each party is going to get at the end of the day. And it gives you everything that concerns the transaction, the timeline of delivery on each project. That's one thing you must know. Now, it is usually between 2 or more persons. One party cannot be person that goes into a joint venture. Agreement must be between 2 or more persons. That's when you have agreement. If it's just one person, it's just an ambition that you have in your heart. But when you share it with others and somebody keys into it, then you have an agreement. Now, the 2 or more persons does not mean that it must be individuals. There are companies, corporate bodies that are into this business as well. So you shouldn't say because this person is not an individual, I'm not going to deal with the person. No. As far as it's a corporate body, you can also deal with that person. However, you have to be sure that the company that approaches you is duly registered. If the company is not registered, then don't deal with the person. Rather, deal with the person directly in his personal capacity. That's where due diligence comes in. You must do due diligence on the person who is approaching you for a joint venture agreement. Then the next one is specific purpose. There should be specific purpose for which you are entering that joint venture. Now, it's for property development. You need to state the purpose of which you are entering it. Okay, I'm going to enter this property, this transaction, because I know at the end of the day, I'm going to get a block of flats at conclusion of the term, which we are going to agree on. The other party will be there also. Okay, this is what I'm going to get. The purpose should be, okay, I'm going to develop this property. You give me this, I give you that. I will fund the development of this property while I take your land. That should be properly disclosed in the agreement. Another thing is you need to consider is structure of the joint venture. It needs to be properly structured. It should be clearly defined. Like I said earlier, the role each party is going to play. If I am giving a 3 plots of land, is there something else that is required of me? Am I the one that is going to perfect the title? That is, am I the one to register the land? Or who is going to register each plot of land? Remember I said that we are dealing with 3 plots of land today. Mr. A, the property developer, is going to get 2 plots of land. Mr. Osas is going to get 1 plot of land. How is the registration going to take place? You need to have all of these things structured out at the earliest possible time. Let's say we are going to register this process. I do not have the finances, like in the case of Mr. Osas, who is a student. He does not have the finances. It can be agreed as part of what is going to be done that the property developer is going to help Osas with the finances to register that property, because it is mandatory that you register your property with the government, and that's one way you can ensure that your property is properly protected. It is not for you. It is not enough, rather, that you write this house is not for sale. That is not enough. Once there is someone who has a valid document, they can always go there and sell off that your property. But if you have it registered and it is your name, whoever is approaching anybody who represents himself as the property owner, the name at the registry will always reveal that this person that I'm dealing with is different from the actual owner. That will help the person who is intending to purchase the property to ask questions. This is the name I found while I was doing my due diligence at the registry. Who is this person? At the end, they will be led to you before you now decide whether you want to proceed with the transaction or not. So it is mandatory that you register your property at the lands registry. Now, if you fail to structure the agreement properly, there is danger when you don't structure the agreement. If you fail to structure the agreement, it may render the whole transaction to be such a fatal one that at the end, the transaction fails, you cannot recover your land, you cannot proceed. It will just be hanging for years. You'll just be there doing nothing, and you don't want that to be the case. You need to structure, okay, how long is this project going to take? Is it going to be 5 months, 6 months, 10 months, 20 months, 2 years, 20 years? It needs to be properly stated there. That's what we mean by structure. Structure it, okay, this project is going to take 5 years. This is how it's going to go. Within a period of 2 years, we are going to develop this first block. The 3rd year, we are going to develop this second one. And the 5th year, we are going to develop the last one. If that is the case, it must be properly agreed that to this level must be completed before the 3rd year. This property must have been developed fully before the 5th year. All of these are contained in the structure when we are talking about the structure. Then the other most important thing is sharing formula. There are some persons who will tell you, just go, let's start this thing. When we finish building, we'll determine what each person is getting or how it will be shared. No. Whatever you are going to do concerning the property must be defined before you commence anything. Let's say, for instance, you have been using your 3 plots of land for farming, but someone approaches you and want to do a joint venture with you, and you agreed. After 6 months of that agreement, the person comes, pours concrete in that land, and you have been using it for agricultural purpose before now. But this person, 2 years later, he has not come. You have been deprived the opportunity of using that land for agricultural purpose. So you don't want that to be the case. Now, when it comes to sharing as well, failure to agree on who gets what and what and when, it may be a challenge at the end of the day. You may now say, okay, this particular block is more beautiful. This particular block is in front. I want my house to be the one to be in front. That may pose a challenge. Or this particular one is in front. I don't want to live very close to the road. I want to be inside. All of these things must be agreed at the earliest possible time. Mr. A is going to get the first block, which is very close to the road. Mr. B is going to get the second one, which is at the middle. And Mr. A is going to get the last one. You must define what each person is getting, the position of each property, and how everything will go at the end of the day. And once all of these things is structured, then you know you are good to go. Sharing formula also means what each person is contributing. It's not just what you are going to benefit. You need to assign, okay, Mr. Osas, you are the one who owns this property. You are going to assist me in registering this land. You are not going to contribute finances, but you are going to contribute your time and giving necessary approvals. Because when you are going to land to register a property, as long as you are not the original owner, you will require an approval from the original owner, that is the vendor, that I have given this person or I have sold this property to this person. Please assist this person in registration. It is that approval letter that will make the people at the registry to know, okay, this property was duly sold by the original owner. So all of these things are some of the commitments the original owner of the property has to render in the course of performance of this joint venture. Now, in conclusion, I want to conclude by saying joint venture agreement is the perfect one for persons who intend to retain their land. However, it has to be one that has great value. If your property is in the village where land is sold for, let's say, 400,000 or 200,000, you can't enter a joint venture agreement with someone that it will require about 15 million to develop the property. How do you intend to raise the other amounts? So you must count your cost before entering a joint venture agreement with any person. And you must also ensure that the person you are dealing with as a property developer, ensure that the person you are dealing with is the right owner of the property. It won't be nice that after developing the whole property, you find out that the person you have been dealing with all along is not even having a stake in the property, or he may have a stake but does not have the capacity or the right to deal in the capacity he or she has represented to you that he had capacity to deal. And also, as the property owner, you must also ensure that the person who is representing himself as a developer has the requisite skill and the funds to finance the project, so that you don't get stuck along the way. A project that is meant to take 2 months or 5 months or even 1 year now keeps dragging for a period of 15 years. You don't have your property, you don't have your land. That should not be your case. Due diligence should be done on the part of the landowner, and due diligence should be done on the parts of the property developer. So next week we are going to look at another session of this joint venture where we discuss some of the things that you must have in your joint venture agreement in order to protect yourself. I remain Destiny Unwante Ijebo, and I beg you to follow us on all our social media platforms so you don't miss out on this particular topic that we have started discussing. Thank you for being a part of this